Turning back now to the U.S. Mexico border, where the federal government is struggling to deal with the number of people crossing into the country. Mireya Villarreal is reporting from McAllen, Texas. Mireya, we know that President Biden is now weighing in on this situation.
We do, Anne-Marie. This is his first time. Last night he gave an interview and he said his message is clear: don't come. And he said the reasoning for that is, quote, we're in the process of getting things set up. But right now there are still thousands of people crossing the border, many of them children, that will go through temporary processing facilities like the one that you see behind me. And as the government continues to get these things set up, they're in the process of doing so. You have a lot of people that are crossing the border, and that is just the beginning of their journey. And it could be a very long and confusing one.
Within minutes of filming a processing center on the border, agents ask us to leave.
So you can't come out here unescorted. Please stop filming.
The media's access to federal-run sites has been restricted, making it harder to understand how the process is working. But under a bridge that connects Mexico to the United States, we were able to see dozens of children and adults waiting for processing. Families are given water, snacks, and foil blankets while they wait to officially enter the system. The unaccompanied minors are first held in short-term centers like this. The only pictures provided are from the government. But lawyers tell us children are going hungry, some showering once in 7 days and in conditions so overcrowded that they had to take turns sleeping on the floor. To get the children out faster, makeshift shelters like this one in Dallas are opening up. But it's not just migrants crossing illegally that are testing the system. A Brownsville parking garage a block from the border has been converted into a welcome center for migrants who have crossed through a port of entry and have been processed by the federal government.
When migrant families arrive, they first come to this step with the city of Brownsville, and the folks here help them contact their families and start providing transportation, either by bus or by plane around the country, to reunite them with their families and friends wherever they're going.
Once the government is able to locate relatives here in the U.S., some of the children who made their journeys alone are reunited with their families, leading to moments like this in Los Angeles, a mother and her 5-year-old hugging for the first time in more than 4 months apart.
So we've showed you what it's like to cross the border. Now we've showed you what it's like in some of these facilities. The next step is for these families, these children, even to go through the asylum process in the federal court system, which is also overwhelmed. Some families telling us they are waiting years to have their cases be heard. Anne-Marie?
Wow, talk about a life in limbo. You mentioned in your piece that the Biden administration is looking to open new facilities to deal with the influx. Can you tell us more about what goes into setting up these facilities?
Well, you know, it's interesting. In the previous administration, we actually saw a lot of these facilities go up when they had their surge as well, about a year and a half ago, 2019. So what we saw is a tent facility, for example, in Donna, Texas. That went up within about 2 to 3 weeks. It's a matter of making sure that you have, like, for example, air conditioning systems inside. You have volunteers that can help serve these families some sort of food. On top of that, you need 24-hour care and cleaning now with, obviously, the pandemic involved. That's why I think we're seeing some of these smaller temporary shelters open up around the country, because those infrastructures are already semi in place for people to be able to kind of just come in and quickly get in and get out as needed. So it's very different depending on where the shelters are opening up and how they are opening up.
FEMA's acting administrator testified before lawmakers yesterday that fewer than 6% of COVID-19 tests administered to migrants at the border have been positive. But I'm wondering just what sort of impact the pandemic is having on the federal response. I imagine testing is one thing, but then if someone tests positive or if someone else is exposed to the individual that tests positive, that's a whole other ball of wax in terms of what you do with these people.
And that's really the messy part of this whole situation. And honestly, one of the issues that we've tried to talk to the federal government about to try and get more clarity. So what we can tell you is on the ground what we have seen. We've been here for several weeks. We were just here earlier this month. And when we were here, we actually saw migrants that were coming across the border into the Brownsville area we saw them getting tested for COVID. And then as long as they had a negative result, they were allowed to leave, whether it was by bus or whether it was by an airplane. The local governments have said we don't have any right to keep them here and hold them here, but we will put them up in hotels while they quarantine. So there is a process in place to get them tested, to try and get them help if they do test positive. But what we don't know is what happens after that. What happens if they're in the shelter system? What happens if they are along the border and apprehended and processed under that bridge that we just saw? Those are questions that are still unanswered by the federal government. And while FEMA has stepped in to help, they are going to bring in some of their own medical teams. They are just getting on the ground right now and setting up their systems. So still a lot of processes that need to be put in place over the next few days, few weeks even.
It all sounds just fascinating and cumbersome, and we already know when it comes to testing for the COVID virus, I mean, you can test once and turn up negative, and a few days later you can turn up positive, so this isn't sort of a one-off thing that they're going to have to do. Mireya, your reporting has been really, really excellent, putting faces to the numbers and statistics. Really appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Great to be here with you.